also a noble tech person, which is amazing. She's like Quan Avalokiteshvara.
Yeah.
She's got a TV in one hand and the slogans in another, and she's doing it all for us. Vote.
Yeah.
Done.
Vote. Talk to your neighbors. Talk to your friends. I'm leaving this Thursday, right after Sangha, to go to Carson City, Nevada, to canvass, and I will be back. I'm leaving Tuesday morning, the 5th, and we'll be here fresh off the Nevada swing state Buddhist election retreat, and with all of you that night on the 5th, which like at San Francisco Zen Center, they're doing an election retreat. People are really finding ways to just come to sit and to ground the whole world. So I'm so glad that we're going to get and are getting to do this. You will find. Did you figure out how to put?
Yeah. You want it now?
Yeah. Let's just put it up for a minute. I brought here for everybody a handout with the slogans, the verses and the slogans. It will also, it's been going out in the newsletters, it's on the website, but you can also take these home with you, and you can, those of you online can download it, I would imagine, or figure out somehow to take it off of the newsletter, which is going out on Thursday morning. But really spend time with this. I mean, look at them and see what jumps out at you. Don't be overly intellectual about it. It's like some of the there'll be one slogan or two slogans or three, or that just say like, me, I'm here, me. And then consciously, you can take that down, Gretchen. Thanks. I just want to keep reminding us. We're going to do, when we do our practice period tea in November, we're going to do some things with the slogans so that we have cards. But also do it now. Like, put it on your refrigerator. Put it in your car. Put it on your forehead. I mean, what? We are forgetful. Maybe I'm more forgetful than you, but my habits are deep, and I need lots of reminders. So please let these slogans help you. The other thing that I was thinking as I was sitting, where thoughts were arising. I was not thinking. Thoughts were arising, and I was grabbing onto a few of them. So I'm going to, Gretchen started talking on Thursday about the third training point, transform bad circumstances into the path, and did a really thorough entry into, I said she picked the hardest one. And she really opened it. So please listen to her talk if you didn't get to hear it. I'm going to do more with that point today. But what I wanted to begin with is, I think I said earlier that Norman Fisher, in his commentary, his Zen commentary on the Tibetan slogans, referenced, I'd never noticed it before, a couple of source books that he worked from, and now I've ordered them both, and I'm The Great Path of Awakening, with the translated by Ken MacLeod, and this one just came, introduction by Stephen Batchelor, called Advice from a Spiritual Friend. It's a little different than the traditional slogans, but they're both attributed to Atisha, who's an early Indian scholar, monk, wisdom person. Most of us know Pema and Trungpas if we've gone to any of the other Tibetan tradition commentaries. Suzuki Roshi and Trungpa were friends. If you go to Tassajara and you go up to the Suzuki Roshi Memorial, some of Trungpa's ashes are up there. Zen Center got in trouble in the 70s. Shambhala and Trungpa got in trouble for a long time, and I might say they still haven't quite pulled themselves out of it. But Trungpa and Suzuki Roshi were some of the first waves of teachers to come to this country. And they helped each other. And because I went to Zen Center about then, it was, you were in this little Zen community, and we were all being good in our little, well, no, we weren't being good in our little robes, but we looked like we were being good in our little robes. And you'd hear about Trungpa, and you'd see people leave to go to Trungpa's community, and you knew they were drinking, and they were having sex, and it was just a really different practice. But it's like, who knows who goes where and why you go there and why do you pick this tradition or this tradition picks you. But a good number of years into my Zen practice, practicing residentially at San Francisco Zen Center, I really had the feeling that Zen had taught me so much. It had taught me about hara, about ground. I could open up my hara and feel it, chi. But I couldn't open up my heart. I could just feel, it's like this whole area was just, because it was just, it was my ancient twisted karma, which we all have. And I would like try to force it. I can get this breath to move up here, and it just wouldn't move. And it was clearly something painful that I needed to meet. And so when a lot of us left Zen Center because of the troubles, I spent some time practicing Tibetan with Sultra Malaoni, which I'm really, really glad I did, because you've probably heard this story before, but I actually had the feeling that so many things that were happening in my body, heart, and mind, mostly what I would call emotions, didn't have any place in Buddhism or in Zen. We're so much better now than we were back then, but back then nobody talked about that stuff. At least it sure didn't sound that way to me. And Sultram, who's a woman and a Tibetan teacher, really brought forward, and my heart really, all the colors of the Tibetan, the drums and the sounds, and I just loved it all. I was so happy, and my heart opened, and I was in therapy and feeling things, and then at a certain point I thought, I just want to sit down. I like Zen. It's like Zen was my home. So I came home to it, but I came home to it in a completely different way, informed by these teachings. So it feels important to say that, because what Norman has done is the Tibetan teachings, if I had to do a really kind of probably gross generalization of the Theravadan teachings are more about purification. The Tibetans are really about transformation and about eating the poisons. I mean, it's like when you do a puja, and like all the poisons are there. There's alcohol there. There's meat there. I mean, and you take a little bit of everything. So it's like, don't get too pure, which is really beautiful, because that's what these slogans are about. Is don't kid yourself. It's like we're just gonna mirror human delusion, and we're really gonna help you with this. And the fact that Norman knew, as we all knew, each in our own way, that there was, Zen is so beautiful. It's like, just sit down in the middle of it. Just sit down in the middle of it. There's resiliency here. There's touch the ground, touch the earth, breathe in and out. There's something so beautiful. And it's what I came home to. But the Tibetans are willing to be messier in a certain kind of way and engage. And that feels important to say that because Norman knew, in fact, I think in his, I noticed in his dedication, it's to his wife and his family. And Zen has a little work to do around compassion, of bringing it forward in the tradition, but without losing. Tibetan is grounded in Bon, which is shamanistic tradition, which I spent a lot of time doing shamanism. I mean, I really like, I love it, but in the end, I just don't want to put anything extra on top of anything. And Norman really does, all the different the Mahayana traditions have the emptiness teachings. The Heart Sutra is there in the Mahayana traditions, which is also Tibetan, but the emphasis is different. So I'm gonna when I talk, I'm just gonna tell you different translations just to give you a little taste and a flavor, because I've been having fun like reclaiming the Tibetan after going from Tibetan to Zen and now back to these commentaries again. So I don't know if any of that was helpful, or they're all Buddhism. They're all rooted in Shakyamuni Buddha. They're all rooted in the Four Noble Truths. I mean, the root is completely the same and really different expressions, just as what's happening in the West right now. It is finding its own voice through us Westerners, and we're just babies. I mean, nobody knows what Western Zen is going to end up as. We are it. So it's wonderful that we can weave these traditions together in this time. Okay, so first point, resolve to begin. We have begun. Bodhicitta is the desire to wake up. You would not be here. You would not be here if there wasn't some quickening in your own heart and mind of wanting to wake up to love and concern and care for yourself and each other and the world. And we resolve to begin over and over and over and over. Point number 2, which we did last week, training in empathy and compassion, the relative and the absolute. And Zen is so beautiful. There's on the door at the city center, San Francisco Zen Center City Center, there's stained glass of Suzuki Roshi's hands in gasho, and it said, you know, one hand is the relative, one hand is the absolute, and they're just together. You're just bowing. Each moment is completely whole and complete because it's both, it's neither, it's all of the above, it's empty, and just bow to whatever this moment has brought. So in the relative, we are working with our relative mind and our self. I have a self. You have a self. Your self is not going away. I'm sorry. It's a really good friend because it will always give you something to work with. It's like, hi, old friend. And it will also help me be compassionate for all those other dumb people out there who I can't figure out why they're thinking and doing what they're doing. But you know what? If I look deep enough, there's nothing out there that, if you think there's anything out there that you can't find in here, keep looking. I mean, I was a therapist, you know, but anyway, keep looking. The absolute is, you could say it's absolute love. It includes everything. And I think we know it through a sense of wonder, through a sense of awe, through a sense of childlike innocence. It's Suzuki Roshi's A Beginner's Mind. I mean, people just loved being with him because he embodied something.
Mm-hmm.
There's a saying, is you won't remember what the person did, but you'll remember how they made you feel. That's how Ning is too.
Mm-hmm.
So you just, but he was completely a human being, and he messed up. I mean, he made mistakes. And just more and more, you transmit something in your life, and you know it in moments because we all transmit it in moments. Okay, so then we get into the third training point, which is transform bad circumstances into the path. And what's wonderful, I think, and the way I love it, is Suzuki Roshi talking about a swinging gate. Is we think there's an inner and we think there's an outer. But when you breathe, the in-breath and the out-breath are completely interconnected. If you think we're like children all the time hiding behind couches thinking people can't see us. I mean, do you understand what I mean? I mean, we're really pretty funny, actually. We're grown-ups and we still think we can hide from ourselves and the world, but there's always kind of a loving Buddha self that's saying, come on out. I see you. I'm not going to shame you. I'm not going to blame you. It's just like, come on out. That's what we do. So Norman's introduction to transform bad circumstances into the path. There's an old Zen saying, the whole world's upside down. The whole world's upside down. In other words, the way the world looks from the ordinary or conventional point of view is pretty much the opposite of the way the world actually is, at least as far as the Zen masters have conceived of it. There's a story that illustrates this. Once there was a Zen master called Bird's Nest Roshi, because he meditated in an eagle's nest at the top of the tree. You have to have some humor here. Zen's full of very eccentric people. That was quite a dangerous thing to do. One gust of wind, one sleepy moment, and he was done for. He became quite famous for this precarious practice. The Song dynasty poet Su Shi, who was also a government official, once came to visit him, and standing on the ground far below the meditating master, asked what possessed him to live in such a dangerous way. The Roshi answered, "You call this dangerous? What you are doing is far more dangerous. Living normally in the world, ignoring death and impermanence and loss and suffering, as we all routinely do, as if this were a normal and safe way to live, is actually much more dangerous than going out on a limb to meditate." I would say one of the great things about this time is we're noticing how dangerous it is. You don't study your mind. If you start believing your own delusion, it's dangerous out there, folks. Vote. And it's fundamentally, everything's perfect just as it is. Because what a great thing to be able to, as bodhisattvas, ask, how can I be of help? What's my own body, heart, mind doing here? So here's some slogans. I'm going to focus on one, but I'm going to say all of them. The first ones focus in this section on relative bodhicitta. Me, you, conventional world. Turn all mistakes into the path. I love Dogen's life is one constant mistake. That's great. You could just carry that around for every time you make a mistake and you start beating yourself up and doing loop-de-loops. Here it is again. and you take a breath. And you meet it with dignity and forgiveness and even gratitude. That's advanced practice. But it does happen. Okay, 2. Actually, it's number 12 on there, what Gretchen gave us. Drive all blames into one. You eat the poison and the blame. The Tibetans, a peacock is a symbol of transformation in the Tibetan tradition, because the belief is, and they probably really do, there's some way that the peacock can eat the poison and then it's transformed into that beautiful tail array. So you accept responsibility for your life, your mind states, your confusion. Maybe in Zen what we do is, and it's maybe why I love it so much, is the verse of renunciation or repentance. All my ancient twisted karma from beginningless greed, hate, and delusion, born through body, speech, and mind, I now fully avow. It's like I just go, yummy, yummy, yummy. I always felt like nobody would ever tell me the truth. That feels so true. It's like, oh. Okay, 13. Be grateful to everyone. Be grateful to everyone. We are all in this together. We are co-creating. You have been co-created and will continue to co-create the whole universe. Even the nastiest, most problematic whatever. You just bow. It's teaching you something if you pay attention. Okay, absolute. The last 3, the final 3 in this section are focused more on absolute. Bodhicitta. With the sense of it flashes. You can't. It's such a beautiful thing about forgiveness is you think you had it. It's like, I just had this insight. My heart was feeling so open and kind, and then somebody just came and cut me off in the traffic lane, and now I'm just a little demon fiend, but then I take a breath and the sun's still out. So, see confusion as Buddha and practice emptiness. It's all arising and passing. You can't grab hold of it. It's ephemeral. It's beautiful. It's joyful. It's profound. It's heartbreaking. And none of it is what you think it is. Very humbling, paying attention. Okay, number 15, which I'm going to come back to. It's my most favorite one. Do good. Avoid evil, appreciate your lunacy, and pray for help. Norman said 100 million thousand words, and this one, I'm sorry, it's like, I'll be devoted to him just because he came up with that one. But when I looked it up, Pema actually translates it as overcoming resistance, which I thought, oh, that's another reason I love this, is because I'm full of I'm a very resistant person. So it's really, if you pick one or it picks you, you'll learn a lot about yourself. So I'm going to come back to that. And 16, whatever you meet is the path. It sums up the others. There's no breaks, there's mistakes. You're always doing spiritual path practice, no matter what or where you are. So let me just take a little dive into do good, avoid evil, appreciate your lunacy, and pray for help. In advice from a spiritual friend in the Great Path of Awakening, the Tibetan translations translate it more as the best way to use the 4 practices, possess the 4 preparations. Pema says 4 practices are the best of methods. And again, overcoming resistance. Norman breaks it down into 1. Do good. It's actually, the precepts are the 3 pure precepts. It's do good and avoid evil. Tibetan languages accumulate merit. Zen isn't so interested in accumulating anything. Just try to be a good person. That's all. That's pretty simple. Do good things. The second one is avoid evil. I used to think evil was sort of over the top. It's like lighten up, guys. But I can't remember. Brother David says evil is something about when you just keep backing yourself further and further into the darkness of a corner. And you just... there is something, I think, called evil that we shouldn't be ignorant of, but we shouldn't be afraid of either. Avoid all evil, refrain from what's unwholesome. Like, just pay attention, folks. We know. Okay, appreciate your lunacy. The Tibetans say make offerings to the demons who prevent you from keeping determined in your practice. Like with Sultram, we would do practices of feeding your demons. It's like you call them forward, you visualize them, you actually ask them what they want, and then you feed them, you start making friends with them. It's a beautiful transformative practice, but in Zen, I find it such a relief. I'm just a lunatic. It's like I'm howling at the moon, and it's beautiful and it's funny. And study my own resistance and confusion, my weaknesses, delusion. I got mine, you got yours. Let's just all wake up together. And the last one is, the 4th, is make offerings to the Dharma protectors. That's the Tibetan language. So call out for help. It's like call out to the Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas. Norman says pray for help, which I think is great because it's a question is, do Buddhists pray?
Yeah.
And who do you pray to? And what is that about anyway? I pray all the time. I have no idea what I'm doing. I think it's a really deep human impulse. It's like, help me, help us to reach out for something beyond myself. And I don't have to know what it is. We just did a Jizo ceremony on Sunday at the yurt, and it was just full of grieving people. And then you think, little Jizo? It's like it's almost a joke. It's like you just lost your father, or unimaginable, and you don't have to believe in this little Jizo dude. You don't have to believe in anything, but people really need to know, and it's the gift of loss, is to connect with something bigger than yourself. Because you know you can't do it by yourself. And Annie Lamott, I always say this, is her. She's got 3 now, but it was always help me, thank you, thank you. Do anybody remember what her 3rd one is? It's just, she's practicing, I think, Buddhist and Christian. Pray. Call on whatever you need to. Pray about the election. It's like, please, all beings of goodness. Okay, so now you get to talk. So here's my question. We're always doing spiritual practice whether you know it or not. What is that? Does that feel true? What is it we think we're doing? And when do you think it's spiritual practice and when do you think it's not? And how do you divide it in your own heart and mind? And what if you investigate, we're always doing spiritual practice whether we know it or not? That whatever we meet is the path. Or anything else you want to talk about, okay? So once you go into threes, find people that you don't usually talk to. I'll match you guys up and you'll have a little less than 15